All right, so this video clip has gone completely bonkers viral recently, but I'm about to explain why this dude, this AI genius, is completely wrong about his diagnosis of why it is that nobody is getting married and having kids anymore. There's a crazy statistic, by the way, as before we get into this, that says that about 45 to 50% of all millennials in the UK are still childless, and the majority will remain childless for the rest of their lives. Anecdotally, I would say it's more like 80% of the millennials that I know in the UK are still childless. So what on earth is going on? Let's watch this video clip and then we'll watch a couple more and get to the bottom of what's actually causing the extinction of the Western world. Let's go.
I'm 30 years old. Not one of my friends has children. Zero. No one. No one's having kids. Do you know how hard you need to abuse a mammal to make them not have children? Like for real. Like let's step here back a moment, right?
Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, look, GDP goes up. People have have enough food, you know, and whatever. No one's having kids, and this is across the world. This is across both the West, the East, you know, everywhere it's happening. So there's a thing that happens, especially with like even younger than me. Like the kids are like 18 today. There's a huge problem where they don't dance. No one dances. They go to clubs and they don't dance. Why is this? Because you get recorded.
Yeah.
If you're an 18-year-old kid, you go to a club, you get recorded. If you approach a girl and you mess it up, you get recorded. Everything is the panopticon now. So if you had to ask me why, my answer is technology. My answer is social media. My answer is AI. My answer is algorithms. Do you know what dating app algorithms do? Do you know how they optimize? They don't optimize for you to meet your love of your life. They optimize you to keep coming back to the app. And now there's a thing that basically we have sold out all of our dating norms, all of our, our interpersonal norms to tech companies without our consent to optimize their ad algorithm. I think there's a deep thing where we as a society have not dealt with the fact that we have to steward technology responsibly. We have treated technology as a Wild West.
Absolutely.
Just everyone can do whatever they want. Just sell all of our younger generation's dating lives to corporations for profit. And who pays the cost for this? Who has liability? So I think the real problem is that we are, as a society, as a government, the generations that came before me, and also my generation, I don't want to exclude myself from this, but also the generation came before me, just let technology rip. The promise was, if you let technology rip, if you let internet rip, there will be democracy and freedom and happiness and economic growth. And where is that? I think my generation is noticing that broken promise.
All right, so there we go. Great clip. Hit the nail on the head on a couple of points, but on other things, way, way off. The reason why people aren't getting married and having kids is not because they're being recorded at dance clubs. Like, what are you talking about? This is not the way people meet. Who watching this show met their partner dancing at a club? Like, this is like some kind of 1950s like a romantic cliche he's got here or something. And also we need to like confront the actual fact, which is that marriage rates and birth rates were already falling way, way before social media, let alone AI. It was already dropping in the 1960s and 70s as a result of the big sort of swinging sexual revolution and feminism, which is really a lot to blame here. The birth control pill, abortions, one-night stands, women entering the workplace. I mean, hello, this is like the biggest blaring thing that's happening here. We've got people abandoning God, abandoning faith, abandoning the church, and trying to like make up their own rules. And what have we done but completely destroyed society in the space of like one generation through doing this? And what's amazing, if not highly ironic about all of this, is that over the last 40, 50, 60 years, since around this time of the 70s, we've done nothing in the education system but blast this message to young people that the main explanation for life on Earth is that of the theory of evolution and Darwinism. And what's incredible is that since this is an ethos, which basically says the purpose of existence is to have lots of babies, to pass on your genes, proliferate the species, isn't it amazing that people raised on that diet of evolution theory have done nothing but have less babies than ever, right? Explain that one. And I think this is now starting to get closer to why on earth this is all happening. But there is more. So let me play you this other video clip here, which basically is saying the same thing. This is from a guy called Ben Sass, who's sick at the moment and is bravely and courageously speaking up despite the fact that he has, I believe, a terminal illness. And I think what he says here is so powerful. Let's watch it.
All across the industrialized, rich world, people have just stopped having babies in the last couple of decades. We're at replacement rate birth rates nowhere in the industrialized world except Mormons and Jewish populations in Israel and in some parts of the US. Except for those two categories, every other industrialized nation has stopped having babies. That is super weird. We've stopped having sex. Sex has collapsed demographically. Premarital, extramarital, marital. It is very weird, I don't have a phone on me, but that we carry around these super devices in our pockets that have distracted us from some of the most fundamental human activities and aspirations. Having a baby is a bet on the future. And almost everywhere in the world, and the world is richer and richer and richer statistically than it's ever been, people have decided, actually babies are kind of an inconvenience. Babies have always been an inconvenience. And the most glorious thing you can do to enrich your family and to make a bet on the future. How weird that we've stopped having sex, we've stopped making babies. We've decided that being distracted by a dopamine hit around Candy Crush might be a good way to spend your time. Not if you're a full human.
Not if you're a full human. That is a very poignant place to leave it, because in a second, I want to talk about the main cause of this breakdown of marriage and birth rates, which actually has to do with an ontological crisis that modern man is facing, where it has no idea who it is anymore. It has no idea of the telos of existence, what direction one ought to be moving towards. And how modern people have completely lost the original understanding of what marriage is all about. Okay, which we're going to get into in just a second, because in this video clip, we're about to see what modern people actually think marriage is all about, which is really just a government contract. Now, the moment you make marriage into a government contract, it becomes the worst idea in the world. And rightly so. Men, in particular, are very skeptical of this because, well, you're about to watch this video and find out why. Let's watch.
I'm not getting married.
A vast majority of the good women that you want are going to expect marriage.
I can have a long-term girlfriend, stay with her forever, be monogamous, have 7 children with her. What changes?
He essentially wants marriage just without the government contract.
Right. Why does the government contract scare you so much?
Financial liability. And I don't need the government involved. And I don't need some woke judge telling me how I should distribute my money and how the assets should go. And, oh, my wife cheats on me, and we've been married for 15 years. In California, I have to pay her alimony for her entire life. F the government, f the laws. Marriage is a contract, and I'm a businessman. When I look at what marriage is from a legal perspective, it's a terrible contract. Oh, here's a woman who didn't help you build your business at all, and at any moment, she could be cheating on me, or even if there's no cheating, she could just be like, well, I don't like him anymore. Now he has to pay me for the rest of my life X amount of money. That's f***ing retarded.
There you go. And look, he's not technically wrong if you take the view that marriage is just a contract between two people who at any time can nullify that contract, and one party gets legally more favored and privileged to take the money of the other, as well as a bunch of other things, access to children and no-fault divorce, and men are absolutely screwed when it comes to the divorce system around the world. And women are actually incentivized to be gold diggers in that sense, and to just divorce men when the going gets tough, or he's not making enough money, and all these kinds of situations. But of course, this is not what marriage is. This is a perversion. As I said earlier, if marriage is just a government contract, it's the worst idea in the world. But if marriage is part of your salvation, if it is a sacrament towards your own healing and theosis, and to return to a kind of ontological fullness, then it's the greatest thing ever. All right. And this goes back to Genesis, that, God saw that man was in need of someone. and from his side formed Eve, which is, by the way, a huge prefigurement of Christ on the cross. Because when Christ is on the cross, from his side, as he was asleep in death on the cross, pours forth blood and water, which then gives life to the bride of Christ, which is the church, of which you enter through the baptismal waters and the receiving of Holy Communion, the Eucharist, the body and blood of Christ. And so the bride of Adam in the garden is Eve, who's brought forth from his side. And you have constantly throughout Christianity this imagery of a great marriage between heaven and earth, between man and woman, as a reflection of the cosmic relationship where you have Christ and his church, and that men need to serve and love their wives in the way that Christ serves and loves his church and died for his church. Men are called to sacrifice themselves for their bride. And women ought to love and adore and obey their husbands in the same way that the church obeys Christ. And you have this microcosm, macrocosm, fractal imaging playing out, and the symbolism playing out constantly. And so when we enter into marriage as this sacrament, and you'll notice in some of the videos I'm showing you on screen, these are what Orthodox Christian weddings look like. And you can see the crowns that they wear. These are the crowns of martyrdom. In Orthodox Christianity, we understand that marriage is an act of martyrdom because you're dying to yourself. You're no longer just you. You are joining with your wife as one flesh. And that, marriage is a kind of asceticism where you have the monk in the mountain, in the cave, who is celibate to everyone. The married man is celibate to everyone apart from his one wife. And the wife is also taking on these ascetical practices of motherhood and the struggle and the sacrifice. And all of these, as Christians, remember Christians mean little Christs, right? We are like little Jesus Christ as Christians, that's what it means. Embodying Christ in our lives. And one of the major ways we can do that is through the sacrament of marriage. It's a sacrament. It's not a legal contract for the government. It's in the eyes of God. That's why we get married in churches, or we used to. One of my regrets is that my wife and I got married in a very secular setting. And it makes no sense. Marriage in that setting makes no sense. It becomes arbitrary. It becomes this big pompous display in front of family and friends, but it doesn't have any sort of real ontological status. It doesn't have that same meaning anymore. And so when you get married in a church, it's completely different. First of all, you're not ripped off like tens of thousands of dollars, right? It's a far more meaningful thing. You've got the priest there, right? It's in the eyes, it's in the house of God. This is a sacrament. And where you stand in the church is the same place that you go when you, usually as an infant, you're baptized there, right? You get married there. When you die, your coffin will stand there. It's a very important part of the church. And so you're right there in front of the altar. And so when you form your life personally with your wife, your families, your communities, your nation, your civilization, in this way, right? This sacramental way of living your life with God at the absolute center, guess what? You end up being the best Darwinists because you end up actually having proper meaning to go out and actually have kids. The struggle, the suffering, all that comes with it, because you have meaning in your life, right? The light of Christ enters this darkened world and fills our suffering with purpose and meaning. That's the incarnation. Christ is born in a dark cave in the dead of night amongst the animals, right? He's crucified on a cross. He enters into the lowest and imbibes it with meaning. And this is what's basically the forgetting of all of this, the forgetting of God has led to all of this. It's why all of this has happened. So when I hear this guy in that video clip say, oh, it's technology, it's AI, it's social media, it's being recorded at a dance club, that's why we're not getting married and having kids, I have to laugh. It's ridiculous. No, that's not why. Okay? Now, here's just one video clip I'm going to show you from an imam, a Muslim imam in America, living in a world where there's social media and AI and technology, describing the fact that Muslims have this huge birth rate despite all these things taking place, despite the dating websites. Okay? It's because the Islamic world didn't buy into the secularism of the industrialized world. Right? The industrialized world, when we're talking about westernized nations, and that also means nations in the East, right? Like Japan, South Korea, various other Southeast Asian countries who have a flatlining birth rate. The major thing that was exported to those Far Eastern countries was the secularism of the West, which, yes, boosted wealth, boosted GDP, free market capitalism, and so on, but it also stripped life of all meaning. And so that fuse, that wick of the candle has burnt out extremely quickly. Like, sure, you're getting a lot of wealth and enjoyment and comfort and all those things, but poof, it's all going to go because you're not continuing the system. You're not continuing to have kids. But anyway, let's just watch this video clip here.
It's coming. Change is coming to America. And what is Allah telling us? Kuntum khayra ummatin. You are the best of nations. You're better than everybody else. That's what Allah is saying. Let's work towards that. Let's work towards a Muslim mayor. Next election that comes in, nominate people for the school board of education. Next election that comes here, nominate people for the local township. Begin the demographics change. The other thing, children. Muslims have the highest population. Average, they did Pew Foundation did a research study, Pew Foundation, and they said that Muslim household average is 3.4 child per family. The white American has 1 child per family. We're already beating the march because these are voters. These are not just babies being born in hospitals. These are voters. That's the way a politician looks at it. We have to change the framework and start looking at things from a different lens, different angle. For future, you're not going to change society today in your lifetime, but you think about your grandchildren.
Yeah, there we go. So basically, he understands it, and politicians understand it, that more babies equals more voters. And so this secular democratic model is actually favoring religious people. Isn't that incredible? Right? So this secular system that was meant to push away the religious people and people raised in that environment in the West have been encouraged to move away from the church, right? And yet, this democratic model actually favors the religious people because they're having more children, therefore more voters. And so, with the falling birth rates of those in those Western democracies, in order to keep it going, they're having to import people. And who are they importing? The religious Muslims. And as they're coming in, they're outbreeding, and boom, the system favors them. All right? So, he's talking about the very high birth rate of Muslims, right? So it's got nothing to do with social media, technology, or anything else. And the Muslims don't view it as a legal contract either, right? They have a different view. Now, I completely disagree with Islamic theology. I think it's backwards, deranged, and nuts, all right? But one thing is a fundamental constant in reality, and that is that religious societies eat secular societies for breakfast. And so that is actually what's going on here. And it really does seem to echo the story in Genesis with Eden, because it's like the snake's trick in the garden was that, you just do this, like disobey God, just eat this thing, and then you will be as gods, all right? You will be as gods. And so they went ahead and did it, and boom, like they just that was the big fall. And it just feels like this whole experiment that said that like we can move beyond the church, we're in a post-religious age. All of that was kind of nonsense. It was just one big fantasy, this silly book of myths that was oppressing people. And all we need to do is just move beyond it, and then we'll create the perfect utopian society. All we've seen is that in just like one generation, the lifetime of people living today, we've completely destroyed the West. Pretty much, that's what's going on. And yes, it started earlier than, just World War II and the last 100 years. It does go back, but man, this is wild to see. And it's crazy that people are just not having babies or getting married. So anyway, my takeaway message to you is, if you haven't already, go to church, get married, have kids. The rest will make sense along the way. Anyway, give this video a thumbs up, comment down below, hype it if you can. Subscribe to the show if you haven't already. Check out the merch, and I'll speak to you in the next one. God bless.